The things we see, the sounds we hear, the smells we smell, all these details are within the thought, which is the word, the sound, the vibration, the energy, the glowing, and is the light. This has all been implanted in our brains as subliminal suggestion, and we believe it. Because we believe our senses and all the suggestion attached to them, it seems real. Even the sun, moon, and stars that reflect light to our eyes make up the hypnotic suggestion to convince us that what we see is real. It's only light. It's just a seductive, illusory, convincing thought form conjured up by the Luciferian group of thinkers. The simplest way to understand this is to imagine a stage hypnotist with his subject in a trance. The hypnotist suggests certain things, and the subject is only able to see and hear those things the hypnotist is suggesting. The subject can hear the voice of the hypnotist, and true to the suggestion, he can see a giraffe or an elephant or whatever is suggested. The hypnotized subject can't see the audience, can't hear them laughing. The subject can only recognize those things the hypnotist suggests. Why can't the hypnotized subject see the audience or anything other than what the hypnotist suggests? Simply because the suggestion is a subliminal thought, a word, and it created a whole new light pattern to emanate from the entranced subject's eyes. His eyes and ears still function, but because the thought implanted in the crystal brain has changed, then the reality of what seems to be real also changes. The hypnotized subject's eyes and ears work perfectly, but the reality is the hypnotized subject can't see anything other than the words suggested. But why? Why can't the subject in a trance see anything else? Because the audience and everything associated outside the trance state really isn't there. If the audience members were really there, really three-dimensional and really solid, then the eyes of the subject in the trance state would see them. The audience can't be seen because the audience is just light, just a thought, and when the new reality state, the new thought pattern, doesn't include them anymore, they cease to appear as a three-dimensional form. The audience didn't die. They didn't leave the theater. The subliminal messaging changed. The reality shifted, and they ceased to appear as three-dimensional. From this, we have to keep in mind that light goes out of our eye. This is how we see. Light is a thought implanted in our crystal brain and explodes into a three-dimensional rainbow of forms right before our eyes. Thought patterns are contrived to distract us from our place in the present moment. There is no such thing as time and space. Just a three-dimensional light illusion simulating something called time and space. When we can be manipulated to leave the present moment, the seduction of the thought, energy, light illusion is able to control our strength and power. Staying in the present moment of awareness allows us to reconnect to our original state. We're no longer manipulated to be concerned over the past or the future. Since time is non-existent, then concern for the past or future is to forfeit your awareness for something that doesn't exist. Only the present moment exists. Staying in the moment by simply watching and waiting, not reacting ever, reconnects us to reality, allows us to take back our power from this Luciferian egregore group of thinkers. The manipulation by the three-dimensional physical state of everything is then nullified as we connect to the eternal state of awareness, that state of no thing, that state of no three-dimensional thing, which in turn is nothingness.
have to totally dive into the abyss, and there is no ground, there is no landing. There is absolute nothingness. And when that absolute nothingness is completely absorbed so that it is no longer an object of experience, it is no longer an emptiness that you recognize, but that you become one with that absolute nothingness, that realizes itself as the fullness. Until the ego is completely absorbed into the nothingness, and then the fullness appears. But that's its paradoxical, invert, and implicate order. Okay, and it's only out of the absolute nothingness, when there is no longer any ego to want to walk, or to want to receive it, or want to know it, that you are it. But if there is any duality, that gap keeps it from appearing. It never appears as an object, right? It's not a treasure house you open up and say, look at all the gold I have. No, you are the gold of the treasure, but you cannot perceive it, not with any senses. It can only be the realization that arises out of the absolute depth of consciousness itself. Presence becomes absence, and in the absolute absence, that itself is realized as the presence that is noumenal and that appears as a phenomenal plane in which it is absent, but its beauty is reflected in that world, that now you appear as the entirety of that world, as the reflected beauty of the absolute, but you are not the enjoyer of it any longer. You have been completely dissolved into it. That's liberation. It's not everyone's cup of tea.